Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is once again that time of the week. Oh, what time of the week is it? Well, it is time for the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. This is the only show every week where we talk about politics, activism at the local and national level. We talk with community organizers, various radicals of various stripes. We call out the establishment on its BS and generally dig underneath the headlines to figure out what's really going down. Now, as always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM, WIDR Kalamazoo, or Western Michigan University. So, welcome on the show, my co-host Lawrence, and if correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're gonna have the full team on deck today.
Some people are gonna be running late, but we do have we may have the whole squad here.
Yeah, that's good because like both of the guests I wanted to have on had to drop. Well, actually, my guy from the Poor People's Campaign didn't get back to me. He's had a busy week. I think he just got arrested for some kind of civil disobedience or something.
Oh man,
they were doing a big thing at the Capitol on Tuesday, specifically centered around immigration. Michigan United, Poor People's Campaign, there were a couple of the main folks organizing that. There were people marching all the way from Detroit to Lansing.
Yeah, man.
We had some people from Kalamazoo there representing, specifically about our dear Sahida, who's having to hide out at the First United Church so she doesn't get kidnapped by ICE.
That was not something that you were supposed to say on the radio. That's not, even though the NSA already know. That's not something you're supposed to say on the radio.
I feel like I've already said like enough disparaging stuff about ICE, the CIA.
No, I'm talking about that person.
Is there a government agency I haven't called out? Right
no,
now?
It's not that, dog. I'm just like that just wasn't something you should say on the radio. But anyway, but I mean, before we get into this week's worth of stupid, we should definitely talk about the positive things that has happened over the weekend, or over this last week since we've been here. I can't think of any. Off top of my head. No, I really can't think of anything. I really can't think of anything that I would want to talk about. No, I can't. I'm blanking. I'm blanking.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing there. Usually I'm the one that always has. I'm the one that's usually saying, "Oh man, there's some positive stories before we get into the negative stuff." But I'm just.
Well, weren't we going to talk about the primary?
Oh yes, the primaries. Mm-hmm. The primaries that just happened. Our revolution, the Justice Democrats, and the progressive, the PCCC, and other Democratic Socialists, they completely and utterly smashed. We have a black woman who's going to be running for the governorship in Atlanta,
Georgia,
and she's and if she wins, she will be the first black governor in the United States.
I think was it first female black governor?
First female black governor.
Yeah.
Like that's revolutionary. You had the first openly gay Latino woman in Texas that also ran and won her primary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You had Our Revolution, who has a 50% win rate, and Our Revolution and the Justice Democrats have only been organizations that's only been around for the last year and some change.
And let's put this in some historical context too, because there's a lot of folks out there who either think like you're wasting your time with institutional politics, or that this is it's like a repeat of failed strategies of, say, like, Howard Dean's Progressive Democrats of America, or, the Rainbow Coalition. And what we've seen is, at the very least, kind of the strategy and like overall tone of the country has allowed this to be far more successful than it has in decades. I would argue you haven't really seen the progressive left have this kind of political power since the days of the New Deal. I mean, because it's been systematically beating the hell out of our politics for decades, and even as recently as 2016, they did everything to keep those kind of issues and values off the ballot. But it's almost like it's hit this kind of tipping point where, and we talked a little bit about this last week, how, one, the Democratic Party probably doesn't pay as close attention on state races as it does on national or federal ones, which is why you've been seeing a lot of these DSA candidates winning in state legislatures, even in predominantly conservative quote unquote areas. Here, though, you see people taking that same strategy, the same issue platform, and winning at a statewide level.
And also,
that's big.
And also, they're also taking over. They're also taking incumbent seats on the federal level, and they have the establishment scared. Groups like Emily's List are backing establishment candidates over progressive candidates, and they're pouring in money to stop progressive candidates. And you had other groups. You had other establishment groups that would fund money to corporatist Democrats, and they would still get their face beat in by progressive candidates who's running on who's running and supported by Our Revolution or the PCCC or the Justice Democrats. They had some really good wins. They had some really bad losses too, but there was some really good wins for two organizations that have only been around for the last year and some change.
Yeah, and like I said, 50%. That's a pretty damn good success rate, especially when you consider that attempts, the kind of attempts that have been made before, have either failed or just gotten assimilated into the Democratic Party machine. Like Howard Dean's a perfect example of that. He was on an anti-war, economically populist platform back when he was running for president. I believe it was 2004.
Yeah, it was 2004.
He started Progressive Democrats of America, and just over time, he ended up being like one of the most entrenched establishmentarians of the last election cycle. He still says a lot of crazy stuff, like Bernie shouldn't have run, or
that's what happens when you become a lobbyist and you start making millions of money from the same people you're supposed to be regulating. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. That's the problem that the establishment Democrats are running into, or are having issues with. But the other problem is that they don't see that there are some that are slowly moving towards the left, the progressive left. People like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and Christian Gillibrand are making more populist, are making more progressive policies a part of their platform, because they don't have a choice. They see the wave coming. They see the progressive movement making a stand and taking over. We are boarding this ghost ship of a party, and that's what scares a lot of the establishment Democrats. That's why I think in 2 weeks, Dianne Feinstein, because she didn't get the endorsement of the Democratic Party, and she has a progressive candidate running against her. If Dianne Feinstein gets beat and by her in her primary, that's going to upset the apple cart in so many ways when it comes to the Democratic Party. Same thing with that
would be too big to ignore, really.
Oh man, I mean that's the best way that a lot of these party a lot of mainstream media has been doing to shut out progressive candidates. They won't cover them. They will not cover people who have progressive platforms, but they're still winning. A lot of these people are still winning, and that's the thing that makes it amazing. even though you had pieces like in Politico making hit pieces on Bernie Sanders and our revolution, and those candidates are still winning.
Well, what's funny to me is like I'm seeing at least a tipping point in the fact that like you can't ignore the efficacy of what they're doing. Like I have a new job now where I see bits of like CBS this morning, and when they were talking about the election, like I pay a lot of attention to like how the media words things, and it's like, the people who run the Democratic Party, the DCCC, were pushing X candidate, and then there was her with the other candidate being endorsed and promoted by a coalition of progressive groups. So it's funny because like it's okay, you're finally getting some respect, but you can't actually say them by name because I guess that gives it. Is it like Voldemort?
It's like Voldemort.
Exactly like Voldemort.
Oh, a wild Luke, the Mad Lib shows up.
That is, is that what
I don't know. Maybe it should be the
Mad Lib.
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't hate it.
This is
I don't hate it.
A wild Luke has appeared. We are playing Pokemon right
now. Yeah, I made it today.
America used capitalism. Luke hurt himself in his confusion.
It was pretty terrible. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so we are talking about some of the positive stuff. We're talking about the election night, elections last night, and some of the progressive wins. The Justice Democrats got 2 out of 5. Our Revolution got, I think, 3 out of 6 candidates that made it. I think it was something along those lines. My numbers might be a little bit off, but as I said before multiple times, because I like to repeat myself, these two organizations have only been around for the last year and a half, and they are
making
whooping
waves.
ass.
Yeah, it's so far the only bit I've seen is bit of news I've seen from this particular set of stories was Bernie Sanders being interviewed by Chuck Todd, and Chuck Todd asking Bernie Sanders about the progressives who were winning, and Bernie Sanders essentially taking a very political position that says, look, seriously, I'm going to run again in 2020, so I'll play ball right now, but expect me.
No, the thing that makes me laugh about the Chuck Todd interview, besides the fact that Chuck Todd likes to frame questions from a very right-wing perspective,
Chuck Todd's an idiot.
is that he says, well, don't you care about electability in these races? Yeah, we as anyone who cares about politics or understands about politics, yes, electability matters. Here's the problem: if people are using electability as the crutch, what makes somebody electable? Is it by name recognition? Because Joe Manchin has a lot more name recognition than the person that he I forgot the woman's name that he ran against, but her platform was absolutely superior to Joe Manchin's by every stretch of the imagination, and she lost that race, but she lost that race by like somebody like 20 points or something. She was supposed to get obliterated, but she didn't. Like, she lost, and that was her first time ever running. It's the same thing with a lot of the other stories with some of the other Our Revolution candidates and Justice Democrats when they're going up against establishment candidates. Yes, the establishment candidates have a lot more name recognition, but if they haven't done anything that's actually benefiting the people that they are supposed to be representing, then I don't care about that electability when you're still may lose to the Republican that you're running against. If electability is based off of policy, then the more progressive person is going to win, because the American people on record backs progressive policies, bar none. Factual, the American people overwhelmingly support living wage, Medicare for living wage, Medicare for all, universal free college and tuition, getting money out of politics, ending the wars, legalizing marijuana. all the things that I think Shri does not support, and that he's gonna be. I wanted to bring that up because he's gonna be here Friday, and if you want to ask him some wonderful questions, go and do so. Abdullah all the way.
Dear Shri Thanedar.
It's Thanedar. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of the two. Dude, I gotta tell you, man, you're gonna come to a tough crowd.
Oh man,
you're gonna come into a tough crowd. Coming to Kalamazoo.
So maybe we should back up a little bit, just for the listeners out there, give you a bit of context. Although, I guess even if you haven't been following the governor's race, his ads are freaking everywhere,
all over YouTube. They are all over YouTube, bro.
His media bomb is pretty big.
He is just like me, because he's a billionaire that won't release his tax returns.
honestly, seriously, the worst campaign slogan. Shri is we.
No. Shri
is we.
Shri is we is not. It's the second worst. It is the second worst campaign slogan.
Better deal.
No. The worst campaign slogan.
Shri is we.
No. The worst campaign slogan has to go to the dude in the incumbent in Illinois who said his slogan was "the name you know."
Yeah,
has to. Yes, yes, the name you know. That was it. No, nothing about policy, but the name you know. Here's the thing. I care. This is what we're political junkies. We care about policy. We care about what the people are going to do when they get into office. Are they going to be influenced, or are they going to be able to fight back against the pressures of everyone else in the room? And Shri's not that person. He's not that person. He's not that person. It's the same. And you have people who's running in the 6th district. Like David Benak and and we have a bunch of progressives running in the 6th district.
Is Eponine
and Paul and you have really good progressives that are running, and I'm happy about that. So we need to put someone who actually cares about the issues that we support, like criminal justice reform and others, and put them on the forefront, so that they can actually fight for us and not just pull a Howard Dean and be a progressive when they get in and then get corrupted while they're there.
Yeah.
I don't need you to be assimilated to the Borg. I need you to fight the Borg. Okay.
Oh yeah, and if we go back, we've talked about it on the show before, but and this is verifiable from people who were in his circle. He wasn't even sure if he was going to run as a Democrat or a Republican before he decided to run.
Oh, God.
His platform, he started really being grossly uneducated about how legislature works. Somebody asked him at a forum how a bill passes in the Michigan House and Senate. He wasn't able to give a coherent answer.
He's a rich guy who got bored and decided that politics was the best way to spend his money. I mean, it's exactly like Donald Trump. He's exactly like Donald Trump.
Yeah, and if you want to give him the benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, well, he might be sincere. Well, there's his track record, and just a couple of things spring to mind. There's this really horrendous case that a lot of people have been talking about, where he basically one of the businesses he owned did a lot of animal testing. And in order to save money, instead of rehoming those animals, at one point when he was basically shutting the business down, he just let a bunch of animals die. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, Lawrence. You had something you wanted to.
I mean, didn't he also openly support John McCain or some stuff? Didn't he?
He donated.
Yeah,
he donated to McCain. He donated to Romney. He donated to Snyder.
Hold on. Didn't he also say he's the Democratic version of Snyder?
Sure did.
Didn't he? Wasn't that one of his
that's right. He did.
One of his most infamous things. How in the I have to self-censor myself. Are you going to come to districts like Kalamazoo, Bent Harbor, Flint, Detroit, where a majority of lower peninsula states or cities don't have clean drinking water, and you're going to say that you are the Democratic version of the guy who made sure that the state doesn't have clean drinking water.
It's just a dumb move.
Like
How
what?
out of touch is that?
It's just dumb. It's dumb. It's tone deaf.
Does he even live in Michigan?
I think he's treating it feels like he's treating the last 8 years as though they don't really matter.
Perhaps
when it comes to referencing that name, because I mean I remember 2010 when Snyder was running for office the first time, and he was his campaign slogan was "One tough nerd." One tough nerd.
He's not a nerd.
And that's sold.
No. He's not.
And I feel like Shri's kind of going for that angle, but is completely tone deaf, has completely missed the point of like referencing people in politics and generally getting a read for a room, which he can't do. He can't read a room.
No, well, especially when he's trying to take over the Progressive Caucus. I don't know if you
by
guys
force.
Wait. Please drop that nugget of knowledge.
All right, so this was at the Michigan Democratic Party convention, and this really makes me wish that I'd been there that day. But the Progressive Caucus, Shri Thanedar shows up, and this is a celebration. They're giving prioritizing speaking time to Dana and Abdul and a couple other progressive candidates. Shri and a bunch of his supporters like show up with his signs, and he tries to dip his butt and get some speaking time, and like the Progressive Caucus actually had to like force him out of the damn room and be like, no dude, we do not endorse you, go away.
You cannot be endorsed when you don't support progressive policies.
But I am just like Bernie Sanders.
No.
Didn't you see my list that I pulled off of his websites and pasted onto mine?
Here's the thing. You supported Romney and McCain, and now you're for universal health care? Now you're for free college and tuition? Now you're for a living wage? You're for a $15 minimum wage with benefits?
It reminds me a bit of this one lobbyist who we interviewed who's now he's talking about he wants to tear down the system like he's an anarchist or something, but that won't take away the money you gave to Fred Upton. Oh
my God. Okay,
sorry.
So
sorry.
but that's the thing. But that's the thing. Like Shri is an example of the Democratic establishment in its purest form. And the reason why I say that is because of the Democratic establishment would rather have someone like him a useful tool that they can manipulate or they can move around than someone who's going to not only ask questions but go against the status quo, because the status quo will hurt their financial pockets.
Well, I would say I think they're, if we're going to say like the establishment wing of the Democratic Party here had a preference, I think it probably would be Gretchen Whitmer. You've only recently seen they started to shift a little bit to Shri because of all these good poll numbers that he's been getting. Whereas, the progressive one, the Michigan Democratic Party got on board with that whole false attempt to decertify his run by saying that he couldn't legally run in Michigan. That turned out to be false. It was basically just like some mud to throw into the water. Also, there have been people in the Michigan Democratic Party who have been very just overtly, it's like, I don't know if a Muslim could be governor in this state. It's like Michigan's too racist, that kind of stuff.
All right, well, I know we talked about that subject. Yeah. I was like, I know we touched on that subject, but we do need to. But I want to touch on another subject that was in the news.
All right. Before we do, I got one more thing on Shri Thanedar, and this is literally like breaking news. I got this through my political channels, but apparently another thing on this list. One of his companies made a non-FDA approved male enhancement drug called Sex with a Grudge.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I remember this. This one's not that new.
Wait, what happened? What is this?
Well, okay, so this one isn't actually that new. I've seen this one floating around for a couple weeks. One of his businesses put out a male sex enhancement drug called Sex with a Grudge. It was not FDA approved. It broke several FDA rules and actually contained Viagra.
Wait. It was a product that was an off-brand version or a clone of a already established version?
Not really. No. It wasn't a clone. They sold it as like a sex enhancement thing, but literally crushed up Viagra into the mix. It was like a powder or something.
It's
really it's one of those things where
No. Hold on.
Like, no, it's an actual issue. It is an actual medical issue because Viagra has like physical side effects if you take too much of it. So, it's an actual FDA issue.
Hold on. What that is in the hood, that's called stepping on the product. Yeah. So for those who've never seen that's never seen a gangster movie, that never saw American Gangster, let me break down how you step on a product. You buy it from the source, and then if you buy a brick, you take that brick and you chop it down into pieces. You mix that brick with something else, and that's called stepping on the product. It makes the product last longer. What that also means is that you're getting something else and you're downgrading it so that you can make something stretch. That's what he did. He bought the work from somebody else, stepped on the product, and then sold it as something else. As to quote Frank Lucas from American Gangster, Blue Magic is a brand name. Like Pepsi is a brand name. I stand by it. I guarantee it. They know that, even if they don't know me more than the president of General Mills. So when you buy my product and you cut it down and sell it as my product, that is product infringement. That is, and that's what Shri literally did. Yep.
And just to put a fine point on that, where's this at now? Well, he's being sued by a former employee for violating his rights under the Whistleblower Act.
So we're attacking people doing their job again.
Yeah. So he's just like Bernie Sanders if Bernie Sanders was a vulture capitalist. So yeah, there's
no. He's more like the more you know. The more you know, Shri Thanedar is more like Mitt Romney. The more and more we learn about him. That only makes me want to go to the town hall that he's coming to.
Oh, I'm going.
I have to work until 5 o'clock. The town hall starts at
it starts at like 4:30, 4:45. So you can still be there.
I want to go just so I can ask him. Like, okay, you say you're like Bernie Sanders. Please explain, and I want to ask him, please explain what policies you are actually fighting for that is exactly like Bernie Sanders. I want to hear him explain it.
Get ready for something rambling and half-assed.
Oh, man. It's going to be amazing. Okay. So, there's a couple quick things that I want to talk about that we don't have to actually...
well, it's about 5:30. Do you want to, jump to a break and then do that? Or
this is one quick hit thing. Okay. This is just a real quick hit thing. In some pop culture news, people got upset with Kendrick Lamar because Kendrick Lamar was at a concert, and he brought a young white woman up on the stage to sing a song with him, and the young white woman said the N-word because the song said the N-word. So he stopped the song and asked her to sing it again, just don't say the N-word. And people were getting upset because it was looked at like he chastised her, and I said on my Facebook page, and I'm going to say it here, I agree with Kendrick Lamar. Humanity comes before your inclusion into the cool group or being accepted into hip-hop culture. Humanity comes first. You wouldn't say that word to him if you saw him on the street. So don't say it. Don't say it in a song when you're right next to him on stage.
I was gonna say, so people were mad about that because he was very polite about it.
He was but that's the thing.
Super nice about it.
But that's the thing. People were getting upset saying he shouldn't have did that. He shouldn't have chastised her. That was the wrong place to do that. And I'm like, no.
It's his platform. It's his platform.
It's his damn concert.
It's his
no, right?
It's his platform.
No.
He can do whatever the heck we want with it.
No. My thing is this though, and this is the people who get upset. Would you call him the N-word if you saw him in person? If you're a white person and you are a fan of his music and you like him, would you call him an N-word if you saw him in person? No, then you don't say it to his face, even if you're singing the song that he made. Like you don't. No, because you're missing the fundamental humanity of the man that you idolize by liking his music. Clear case in point. Run the Jewels is one of my favorite hip-hop groups. They should have got a Grammy back in 2015 when they came out with Run the Jewels 3. Mm-hmm. They should have got that nod. They should have got a nomination. You have Killer Mike and L. L's a white dude from Brooklyn. Killer Mike's from Atlanta. Killer Mike says the N-word in songs with him all the time. L does not. Why? Because L understands. He gets it. I'm like, he's in a hip-hop group with one of the greatest lyricists in our generation. Stop it. Stop it. Stop right now.
That reminds me of this meme I saw the other day. It was this was at a recent rally or whatever. But it was like a black dude with a Confederate flag and a Trump hat. And across the street was a white guy holding a Black Lives Matter sign. And the caption above it was Kanye versus Eminem rap battle 2018.
Oh my God, that would be an epic rap battle. Okay, wait.
I want epic rap battles to make that epic rap battle.
Wait. I'll give you another clear example. Yeah. Royce the 5'9" and Eminem. Royce the 5'9" and Eminem has made music together ever since 08.
Mm-hmm.
And Eminem, he's done songs with every black artist that you can think of. Has he said the N-word once in any one of these songs?
Well, actually, if you go back, there was an interview he did, and this was many years ago. I can't even remember which album it was. I think it's around Marshall Mathers actually. But somebody actually asked him, do you have any boundaries? Is there any word you wouldn't use? And he said, I wouldn't say the N-word, and the reason because of that is this the culture that I am part of. This is black culture. I'm being invited into the tent. I wouldn't disrespect them by coming into this space that they've created and saying that word.
Again, folks, check your privilege. Check your privilege, please. You cannot say a word. It's not the end of the day. It's not going to ruin your 401k. It's not going to ruin your credit score. You just can't say a certain word around certain people. You'll get over it. Now we can go on our break.
Is this fascism? No. Okay. We'll be back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
Be apparent, but hunger is a rather prominent issue amongst the student body of Western. The Invisible Need Project is a multifaceted initiative that's aimed to help struggling students. Every 2 weeks, generous people donate their food to the pantry located in the Fawn Student Service buildings or other drop-off locations. All you need to do is grab a reusable bag and grab whatever food you need to help sustain yourself. If anyone's unsure when their next meal will be, or if you have a little extra food you'd be willing to donate, the food pantry is your place. If you're looking to help donate, become a volunteer, or just learn more, call 269-387-4742 or email dosa-inp@wmich.edu for details.
Are you trying to get your local business's name out to the WMU and Greater Kalamazoo communities? Why not do so while supporting Radio Evolution through underwriting and donations? For more information, please visit widerfm.org.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. Sorry about, yeah, I just got a phone call. Listener, okay, here's what I'm gonna say. The context of the phone call, he was calling in about the story we were just talking about, the Kendrick Lamar thing, and yeah, his is like, well, if that's the way he wrote it, and he invited her up on stage to sing it, why could? Here's my thing about it. Like, we could go into a much deeper and longer discussion about why that word is effective, but here's another question I'm gonna ask. How come I never get a caller when we're talking about, like, imperialism?
Yeah, it's always got to be like, why you gotta always make it a race thing? Why do you always gotta make it a race thing?
We just did a story about how, like, we're drone bombing, like, all of these countries more than we've ever had before. The collateral damage rate is skyrocketing.
Wait, we are gonna talk about.
You're gonna call in because.
Wait, we're going to talk about the war on terror on the next segment. But let me answer to this caller. Caller, if your stance is it's in the song and she's just reciting the song as it is, okay, I get your point on that. You can have that. That ain't even what I'm mad at. I'm mad at the fact that you're excluding her behavior in a public space because of the song that she's choosing to sing in a public space next to a black artist. So the fact that his humanity, because of what's associated with that word, the history that's associated with that word, and its perspective in America, and how is used, you're throwing that all away because she's performing the song that she likes by a black artist. If she likes this black artist, then she wouldn't want to disrespect him first as a human being by saying the word that dehumanizes black people. I'm gonna let you go. Luke. But the thing that I want to get at is I understand a lot of that criticism, but at the same time, she made a judgment to do that, and she's being invited into a culture that he invited her on his stage. Show some decorum to the human being who let you come on stage to rock with him, and understand your place. It's just a word that you can't say around black people. It's simple as that. It's just one word. Her not saying that word is not going to ruin her. Financial future. It's not going to ruin her 401k. And the fact that she knew the song, she performed it correctly after he corrected her.
I mean, okay, so
it's a pretty like non-event, but
yeah, it's a huge non-event, and really what it is, straight up, is a general kind of either blasé take on it or a general ignorance of the cultural differences between white and black America when white people want to start listening to black music and partake of that culture in a kind of a piecemeal, this entertains me kind of way, without ever actually taking the time to fully understand why the culture is the way it is, without actually appreciating the culture that they enjoy. That's really what the ultimate kind of takeaway I have from it is this girl enjoys it, but she doesn't appreciate it.
I mean, if you want another way, I would ask you, caller, if you want a really elegant way of looking at the subject. Ta-Nehisi Coates got asked this question by a white student at a book interview that he did, and they asked him, is it okay for white people who enjoy hip-hop to say the N-word? And it's on YouTube. Watch that video and listen to what Ta-Nehisi Coates has to say, and see if you agree or disagree, and it might change your perspective.
Okay, yeah, and but by the way, just kind of one thing to cap it off. When I talked about it as like a non-event, I guess what I really meant by that is, in the context of what happened, it got resolved extremely quickly, even within like the sequence of events as they played out. But it went viral, and it got like this really huge response. And I think that's more indicative of like what media, what the zeitgeist really latches onto these days. Anything else is like, it's like, again, it's like it's dredging up like this weird debate about, well, can white people never say it? And it's like, I thought, haven't we figured this out by now? That's like an unwritten like social politeness rule.
Can white people say the word? Because white people say the N word. As to quote one of my favorite comedians, not really. If you look up Chris Rock and look up, can white people say the N word? Follow that guideline, and you should be fine. But let's get to this next topic.
Yeah. Let's do. And what is the topic we wanted to dive into next?
I wanted to talk about the Nation's article. The Nation did an article, and it was talking about the War on Terror. The War on Terror started in September 12th, 2001, and the Nation looked. It was Brown University published an estimate of taxpayers' dollars that has gone to America's War on Terror from September 12, 2001 through the fiscal year 2012. The figure, a cool $5.6 trillion, includes the future cost of care for our soldiers and vets. So that's also it's $5.6 trillion, but that's not including. But you also have to put into the fact of manpower, the weapons that they need. We're also talking about the type of psychological care or rehabilitation that they need when they get out of service.
And this is just talking about veterans care.
No. This is just talking about. This includes the future cost of the war vets, of what the war on terror has cost Americans $5.6 trillion. Now, for every American,
that's like almost a dozen Jeff Bezoses.
No, but that's the thing. It's not including the medical care. It's not including the rehabilitation. It's not including the armaments that they need, the plane, the fuel, the food that they need when they're over there. It's not including any of that. This is just what the taxpayers pay every year going into the war on terror. For every American, I want to break it down for every individual American. You have paid $23,368 on average. That's what every taxpayer has paid for our war on terror. Now remember, folks, the war on terror, we attacked a country that did not attack us. And we continue to attack countries that did not attack us.
We continue to attack countries under the guise of the act that allowed us to go after Al Qaeda, to attack places that are completely unrelated to Al Qaeda. Why are we in Somalia? Currently, while we're helping Saudi Arabia bomb Yemen, one of the other branches of that whole conflict is Al Qaeda against Yemen. So we are by default right now allies of Al Qaeda.
Well, I mean, they were
committing
even,
a genocide in Yemen.
When Tulsi Gabbard came to visit Syria, there were literally like people asking her, common folk. It's like, why is your government funding Al Qaeda? Like, they blew you guys up, aren't they your enemies? Like, and it would not be amazing to actually like come face to face with like people who were the victims of our foreign policy stuff.
I mean, I want to ask every American that's listening to us right now. If your government told you that we are going to launch this war on terror, and on average, we're going to take $24,000 out of your pocket for the war, would you be okay with that?
Oh, no, see, I feel like that's a really poor question to ask them, because it's not on average it's 24,000, but I mean,
we're millennials, so you have to ask how many slices of avocado toast would you be willing to give up?
No. That's not even what I'm getting at. I think it's a poor question to state, because there are plenty of people who have paid less into this program than others, especially people entering the workforce now, rather than those of us who have been in the workforce longer, or even since we began the war on terror. Those people have paid more. It is, would you be okay with us taking out a exponential loan out of your tax dollars to bomb people and cause havoc?
I mean, remember, folks. Remember when this war first started back in 2001? They said that the war was only going to take a couple weeks, and it was only going to cost like $1.6 billion. That's what they said it was going to cost. But this Brown University shows that it's 5.6.
During the Bush years, when I remember them kicking this line that's like, "Oh, the war will pay for itself."
Yeah, but that's the thing. $5.6 trillion. For people who may not understand how much that trillion is, Bernie Sanders' estimate, Bernie Sanders' universal health care plan was going to cost $40 billion, or around a rough estimate of $40 billion. That is a rounding error compared to the war on terror. Like his universal free college and tuition was around $70 billion. Again, I'm not even in the 3-digit, I'm not even near $1 trillion yet, and we already have universal. That would cover universal healthcare and universal free college.
Well, I think one of the most egregious comparisons, I think The Intercept literally had a headline that said this. It's like with the $80 billion increase to the military budget, this was several months ago, but this was bipartisan. The Democrats agreed, let's give the Trump administration even more money than what it's asking for the military budget. That $80 billion would have, the $80 billion that they did not ask for would have literally been enough to pay for free tuition at any public college or university in the United States for every young person in America. But no, we've got to buy more experimental jets that Raytheon wants us to build.
Not to mention that while we're spending money on weapons to demolish and decimate the infrastructure of countries overseas, we are spending money on bombs that should otherwise go to spending on our own infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Because our cities are currently in decay. Flint doesn't have clean water and hasn't had clean water for 4 years. East Chicago is in the same state.
Chicago.
Cities across America are like, infrastructure is failing. What happens when America's infrastructure fails and the regular and normal people here don't have access to clean water?
Well, you know what they say, Luke? When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Yeah, let your infrastructure fall around your ears, poison yourself with lead, and have your empire split into two, and then essentially shatter Europe for a couple hundred years.
Yeah.
Just to put some more facts on, just to throw some more facts on this table. When we bombed Damascus, when we dropped bombs in Syria, again, another country that did not attack us, even though we are literally paying ISIS and Al-Qaeda, we are backing them. The CIA and our Defense Department has backed Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda because they're attacking the Syrian regime. We bombed Damascus. Those bombs that we sent over there cost $221 million. It would cost $55 million to fix the lead pipes in Flint. And while we have spent $5.6 trillion on a war, we couldn't spend that extra $80 billion that we gave to the military to help Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, 60% of that Puerto Rico still doesn't have power. When a wise man told me once that show me your budget and I'll show you what your priorities are. And our priorities has nothing to do with helping people. That is not what America's based on.
I think in the situation with Puerto Rico, they certainly want to help all of the disaster capitalists who are coming down there. And joking aside, I just take a brief moment to kind of talk to address that. You know, when we talk about like, why don't we spend that money on our pipes, or why don't we spend that money to fix Puerto Rico? And it's like it's by design, you know, especially when you're talking about something like Puerto Rico. The reason they are not getting more state aid, and there's a lot of racism around it, but primarily it is so these corporations can step down there and basically reshape Puerto Rico in whatever image they see fits. And this is what happened in Katrina after New Orleans. This happens every time in America there's a big disaster.
It was still happening to Hawaii.
Yeah. I mean, they use it as an excuse to privatize for austerity and to basically give corporations carte blanche to like go down there and just basically claim ownership of this territory. With Flint's, there have been, I've actually heard recent stories that they're starting to build up developments on the periphery of Flint. And I mean, there's some theories coming from like local activists that like, are they just gonna like wait until everybody or enough people move and then they'll fix the pipes when there's a bunch of what is it? It's like a downtown with a Starbucks or something.
I mean, they're gonna. I mean, if you take I mean, Flint, Michigan, the university that's in Flint, that's connected to U of M, a lot of the schools or a lot of areas that they could use to develop land near the school are owned by black people whose water are poisoned. So if they leave or move, then they can buy the land, fix the pipes, and then use that to redevelop the city. It's a good plan. It's a horrible plan. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, logically, it makes sense if you're looking at it from a predatory standpoint. This problem is that you're destroying people's lives so that you can make a buck in the future. But that's America. This is America.
This is America.
Like, oh God.
Well, that's a good video.
But okay. So to talk about another subject that I thought was really interesting, I thought it was really interesting that the royal wedding was a thing.
Yeah.
I thought what was more interesting was that the police in overseas were kicking homeless people off the street.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like, can we talk? Can we talk about that, please?
They did it for the last one too.
Like
they do it every time because all of the cameras are watching. We can't have homeless people ruin the royal wedding.
Like, oh my God,
I mean,
they do it every time.
That's a microcosm of the way like these big kind of pomp and circumstance events end up disrupting the local community and economy, sometimes in ways that last for years. Any town that gets the Olympics coming through usually ends up displacing hundreds of residents, both homeless and people with homes. I think like China was particularly egregious a few years ago. They were just literally tossing people out of their houses in order to build infrastructure for the Olympics. Not that in the United States they've done things similarly predatory. Similarly, they just like sweep homeless people to either a different part of town or just basically give them nowhere else to go while they're building this infrastructure for this event that's only going to happen there once or maybe again in like 100 years. But
the thing is, and this is the thing that bothers me. I think it was Amnesty International or it was one of the international peacekeeping groups that said we could end world poverty with the amount of money that Americans spend on Christmas every year. We could end world poverty. And I'm thinking about it from an American's perspective. We have more. This is I think it was HUD that said a couple years ago, we have more homes that are empty and vacant than we actually have homeless people in America. Mm-hmm. That was I think that was HUD during the Obama administration that came out with that study. And the thing that bothers me the most is I get that it's a special occasion, but as some of my European friends said, they look at the royal family the same way that Americans look at the Kardashians. So,
yeah.
So, but the thing is that when you're when you are kicking out homeless people, you're shunning them away, same way that they were doing with robots in Seattle and in California. You're trying to fix the symptom, but you're not looking at the problem. And Martin Luther King that once said, humanity is not looking at a homeless person and giving them a quarter. Humanity is looking at a homeless person and asking, how did they get in that position? What system allowed them to be in that position? And how can we fix the system that put them in that position so that they don't have to be there anymore?
And that actually reminds me of another story, and this is kind of a more feel-good one, even if it's a little coarse. But a lot of the local pubs in that area hosted basically this big fundraising days on the day of the wedding called F the Royals, although it's the whole word spelled out. And they were raising money for local homeless shelters and food pantries. So that's a great example of one kind of pointing out the hypocrisy of institutions like the royal family, but also like community self-sufficiency and mutual aid. And I think that's a good example. If you've got like some event coming down and nobody's seeing to it that the people in your community are taken care of, and I mean this could be something like the Olympics. This could just be when there's a bunch of flooding going on, say in Kalamazoo, and you don't know how your neighbors are doing. You always never feel like somebody else can do it. Just organize something. Get something going. Help your neighbors out. Just like these pubs did. Also, another thing about the wedding that a lot of people brought up, and even like they're talking about on Democracy Now, it's like the at least the symbolic significance of you had a black pastor doing a sermon, the choir did Stand By Me, and they're like, well, it's really incredible to see like this American blackness at a British royal wedding. And I was like, yeah. What was constantly in the back of my mind, because like I had to watch a little bit of it at work the other morning, so I'm watching him getting married to like Meghan Markle. I'm like, this is the same guy who dressed up as a Nazi for fun a few Halloweens ago.
Yes. I mean, look. The English are still white. Yeah. The English are still white.
That's still mayonnaise on the sandwich, Doc. That's still
it's not even Miracle Whip.
It's not even Miracle Whip. It's still mayonnaise.
It's just mayo, like store brand. It's too much oil on it. Like it's just It makes your sandwich greasy, not better. Like that kind. That kind of mayo.
Like I mean, come on, man. We're going to talk about imperialism, and we're going to talk about people who kind of broke the world or made the standard of imperialism. I mean the British people, what I'm saying, they got it. Mm-hmm. They took the cake.
Oh yeah,
they
took the wedding cake.
All right, there's one other thing that I want to talk about before I have to dip out. Mm-hmm. The Houston police chief that stood with the March for Our Lives kids and asking for gun reform. His response to the school shooting that happened in Santa Fe, I thought it was so amazing and so brilliant, and I forgot about it, but that was something that I wanted to talk about. He said, if our politicians are not going to do the will of the people, then we need to have ballot initiatives. We need to go around them. We need to, if they're not going to stand for comprehensive gun reform, this is what the police chief was saying. Mm-hmm. Well, from Houston, I forgot his name, but he said, yeah, if they're not going to stand for gun reform, then we need ballot initiatives. We need to go around them, because kids getting shot up in schools cannot continue, and you cannot keep having politicians or numbnuts people going on Fox News saying that the problem isn't guns, the problem is too many doors, or the problem is Ritalin and violent video games or movies. Like it, when you have a police chief saying that we need comprehensive gun reform, and he stands with the March for Our Lives kids, and he's the police chief of the city where a mass shooting just took place in Texas. I think that says a lot. I think that says a whole lot.
No, yeah, I would agree, and as much as we talk about police reform on the show, I think that is an excellent point to bring up. It's like, these people ostensibly are the agents of criminal justice, in our current society, at least as it is set up. And yeah, they would know about gun violence, that's for sure.
I mean, God, the excuses that you heard with everything from blaming the woman because she rejected the shooter's advances, saying that the school has too many doors.
I think we need to have a whole conversation on incels.
Oliver North saying wait. Oliver North saying that it's violent video games and Ritalin and movies.
You can go. I can take that one.
All of the nonsense.
Oliver North said that.
Oliver,
I'm going to introduce crack cocaine to the neighborhoods of America and sell guns to the Contras North.
Yeah, Oliver North said that, and I'm literally quoting. He said that the problem is our society, our violent society, that kids are on that these school shooter kids were on drugs.
He specifically said Ritalin.
Yeah, he said Ritalin. And what did you just headbutt the mic?
I did.
He just headbutt it.
Yeah, look, it's really hard to just do a straight head desk in this room, okay? You got to take what you got. No, you literally blamed, tried to throw blame on Ritalin.
In violent movies and video games. And I'm just sitting here like...
violent movies and video games has been a dead argument since 1990. Dead. It was honestly it was a non-starter argument for me back when I was 10.
Well, I mean, the Trump administration were so successful bring back the 80s that they wanted to bring some chunks to the 90s back too, because we've got like the Back to the Future villain as president. Synth pop is really big again. We've got a really conservative warhawk woman running the UK right now.
I mean, hold on. I mean, just here's the thing, and this is a couple things before I leave. You want to know the reason why a lot of these arguments are stupid? Because they don't make logical sense in any other shape or form. The whole argument with we need to arm teachers. Okay. Or what stops a good guy with a gun is a bad guy with a gun. Okay,
that one gets recycled all the time.
So no. But I'm like, take out gun and put a different weapon. You know what stops a bad guy with a bomb? A good guy with a bomb. We need to, if teachers just
we need to deregulate bombs.
No. If teachers had bombs when this school bomber came in, well, they could have just threw the bomb at them. If students could open carry bombs in school, then we'll be safe.
You know what stops a bad guy with a knife? A good guy with a knife.
I wish I could cue up a clip of Adam West just saying, "Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb." Oh.
No, but that's my thing. Like, we act like countries like Japan don't exist. Japan has movies and violent video games. We act like we don't glorify things like American Gangster. One of our most cherished movies in America is The Godfather. Like, are we kidding? Scarface, Godfather, Goodfellas. Like, John Wick. Like, we act like these movies, like we don't celebrate and love these movies. I absolutely love every single one of those movies. But countries like Europe and Australia and Japan, they have violent video games and movies, but they don't have the mass shootings that we do. Canada doesn't have the mass shootings that we do.
Not only do they have their own brand of violence in their media, but they also consume American media on top of that. And yet we still don't see the same kind of effects of gun violence from those countries that we see in America. And it seems to be the cause of gun regulations.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's gun regulations.
Oh yeah.
Pretty sure it's gun regulations.
The other thing about that is the other dumb argument that you heard on Fox News. First, blaming the woman. Okay, D.L. Hughley said it, and I quoted him when I wrote it on Facebook. It is true Angry white men who can't get laid kill more people in this country than diabetes. But blaming the woman for not wanting this creepy dude, and then he turns around and kills her and other people at the school. That's not the woman's fault. That's not the girl's fault. She didn't want him. If she didn't want him, she just didn't want him. But blaming the victim for being killed is like blaming Palestinians for being shot when they're peacefully protesting. Or that's like literally blaming the people who walked across the bridge on Selma for the cops beating them and attacking them with dogs. Like, no, that doesn't make sense. And the other thing that there was a dumb argument that you heard was people blaming the school, saying there's not enough doors. We need to make the school, everyone needs to go through one gate or one door.
Well,
wait. Let me just get to this point.
Oh my God.
Let me just get to this point. One, that school had an armed guard.
Had 2 armed guards.
Yeah. So here's the thing. You're gonna focus everyone in that school to go through one door, so that this mass shooter who's wearing a trench coat in Texas and it's 90 degrees only has to kill one person or two if that second guard is there. After they kill that security guard, everyone that's in that one line is a sitting duck. You just made the mass shooters worse.
A kill zone.
You literally made a kill zone.
It's literally one of those things where congratulations, you've made a kill zone because you don't control approach to the building. Congratulations for establishing that really you just want to continue to turn schools into prisons. It is literally the argument that happens every single time a school shooting happens. I hear, oh, we need more armed guards in schools. Oh, we need to control entrances and exits better. We need to install metal detectors, and we need to make sure that we need to make students wear clear backpacks, and like it's literally the authoritarian solutions to this problem are not working. And that's what they are. They are authoritarian solutions imposed upon children. And I really want to just kind of let that sit for a second so we can all realize how screwed up that is.
Well, I mean, I'll counter that by saying, that's already kind of how we're starting to see what they've done to schools in the inner cities. They're starting to do that now to other schools all over the country.
The thing is, it's the lack of empathy in America. People don't care until it happens to them. Black inner city schools and minority schools have been saying that y'all are treating us like prisoners for years. We went to Lori Norks, and I'm not gonna say Lori Norks and Central are as bad as other schools when it comes to the way they looked at security, but Lori Norks was safer in comparison to some other places, in comparison to some other schools that I've been to. But at the same time, that perpetuation cycle of you are being monitored at 24/7. Everything that you're doing is being filmed. You don't have a sense of privacy or dignity, and it pushes people, and it mentally treats people like Pavlov's dogs. That this is the type of thing that is supposed to be normal, and it's not.
Taking that to a logical conclusion, if you don't kind of address this, you don't let people be themselves out in the open, out in public, you drive this kind of self-isolation because people just want to be able to have a hot second to just breathe, which is why, I'd probably go off into some crazy stuff.
No. Here's the thing.
It's a problem.
The problem that makes this even more egregious is that the mainstream media will give time and energy to these authoritarian fascist ideas and they will not in any way, shape, or form actually talk about constructive policies that will help detour gun violence and gun reform. Damn it, we had a police chief in Texas, in a state where you can buy, in a state where it's easier for you to buy a gun than it is for you to buy cold medicine. Like, damn it, it's Texas. You can buy it's easier for you to buy a gun than cold medicine, and you have a police chief saying we need comprehensive gun reform. Like, come on, son. Come on, son.
Oh,
like,
really? Yeah. Oh.
Wait. I gotta go. So love y'all. I gotta go.
Okay, Lawrence, thanks again for coming on the show. I think let's go ahead and take a break. Y'all are listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
WIDR is proud to be supported by Pedal Bicycle. Pedal Bicycle has 2 locations on 611 West Michigan Ave and 185 Romans Road. More information can be found at pedalbicycle.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution. So, here's an interesting little dilemma going on. Or actually, I wouldn't call it a dilemma, but I saw this interesting article. This is the one that I shared about where we stand on the crime statistics here in the state of Michigan.
Oh, I missed that one. I didn't get to it.
But we are, according to this study, this is conducted by a website called roadsnacks.net. They basically do this travelogue thing. And we are the 7th most dangerous city, quote unquote, in the state of Michigan. Let's just go here's how they basically came to this conclusion. They used the 2016 Crime in the United States report. And that's from the FBI. And they looked at violent crimes per capita and property crimes per capita. And they specifically focused on cities that were over 5,000 in population. And let's go on. I want to go down and just read off what they say about a couple of these cities, and then I'll mention Kalamazoo. The most dangerous one, and this is probably a surprise to most people, is Muskegon Heights. And according to them, violent crime has been up 10% since 2015. And honestly, I don't really have too much on the ground information about like the west coast of Michigan. But yeah, apparently, I mean, I know a little bit more about places like Benton Harbor. But yeah, Muskegon Heights, that was pretty surprising to actually see on that list, especially taking the top spot. I guess I need to study more, or find out more about what's going on over there. And what they have to say about Kalamazoo. We're up 4 spots. Last year when they did the same study, we were the 11th most dangerous city. But the actual statistics, and this is like violent crimes per 100,000 people is about 1,210. Property crimes ratio is 4,216. And we are the 7th most dangerous, 12th most violent city in Michigan. And according to the study, violent crime has remained high from 2014 to 16, during which time property crime fell by only small amounts.
That's yeah, I don't know how to feel about that.
Well, you know, I mean, there's a lot of commentary to be wrapped into that, and you know, one of the things I will comment on, and I was complaining about this during the commercial break, was what exactly does our city do to address these problems? And I mean, from you know, like an economic standpoint. Now, there has been some inroads in the last couple years. I know City Commissioner Don Cooney was making a big push to use some of that initial foundation startup money to basically do these summer programs in some of the poorer neighborhoods in town, like kind of these job training programs and whatnot. So there's been some of that money's been used the right way, but I'm looking around and you know, I'm seeing like they've got that market exchange going up downtown. They're talking about building all these luxury apartments.
Luxury apartments don't help out most of Kalamazoo, guys.
No, and you know what maddens me about this, and okay, somebody might, it's like, well, how does this relate to crime? Well, look at that property crime statistic. It's 4,216. Now, do people steal stuff for the fun of it? Maybe like a few people do, but primarily when people steal something, it's out of economic necessity. And you'll particularly find this in the Kalamazoo area, where you know most muggings will happen basically just to get a few dollars. They're not from like, you know, what you would imagine as being like, you know, some kind of career mugger or something, but typically somebody who's just really down on their luck, and they perhaps they have a drug problem, perhaps they don't, perhaps they just need like some money to get by. Again, while the community sprouted up in the last couple of years and started trying to build effective supports for these kind of issues. I know our buddy, our friend of the show, Gwendolyn Hooker, she's helped facilitate a lot of programs on the north side dealing with drug addiction and poverty and kind of how those issues intersect. But when the most visible fallout you see after this program goes through that says a bunch of billionaires are going to subsidize the city budget, and what happens directly after that? Oh, we're going to build these apartments on these parking lots that are probably going to be priced out for most of the people in the community that need them. And I tell you, every time I go to these community meetings, and I go to them quite a bit, and they talk, specifically, I'm remembering back to, you know, that old fire station down by Papa Pete's?
Oh, yeah.
The overarching theme, everybody was demanding, we need affordable apartments, affordable housing for you know, working class people. Have the people who work in the building be housed in the building. Like, it was always some variation of, we need more housing that is affordable to people. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a personal anecdote. There earlier this afternoon, so my landlord is selling my property, and to his credit, he's been saying for a few years that he's going to do this. That was his eventual plan, to flip the house. I don't think he quite really gave us enough lead time, but that's
I don't think so. He dropped it on you like earlier today?
Yesterday.
Yeah, that's
you're usually hunting for houses around like February, March, but so a group came through to check out our house. This is 1 a.m. I was a cranky boy. I worked nights, so I was not very happy. And they were the whitest of whites.
I've been seeing I've been seeing posts circulate around social media about property investors, like busloads of property investors coming and looking at properties.
And these were some very nice, older white professional type people who probably were a little taken aback at the punk rock look of my house, but so it was Berkshire Hathaway is the company. And I could tell right then and there, and not to say that this company is somehow predatory or anything, but there is a certain clientele they deal with, and it is not, punk radicals in the Vine neighborhood. If anything, the house I live on, it's in a very nice location. It's right on the corner of Westnedge and Park Place, and I've been hearing from a lot of people living in the Vine neighborhood and neighborhoods downtown. Their property is being bought up or they're being evicted so that their landlord can upsell it to somebody who's going to develop it into either a luxury house, or what the actual line they used. They were probably going to be fixing up the house and renting it out to either a student with means or some young professional, not to have too much of a woe is me aspect to it, but I mean, this isn't just happening to me. It's happening to a lot of other people in the Vine neighborhood and a lot of the other neighborhoods around downtown. They are trying to build up downtown, basically to get that rich white people money, that yuppie money. And it's going to leave a lot of people behind.
I mean, it's only going to increase the problems as people are priced out of the Vine, the closer suburbs to downtown. As those people get priced out, you're going to see more and more overcrowding in the neighborhoods that do fall into that affordability. And if affordable housing isn't built, what you're going to start seeing is overcrowding, overhousing in the apartments themselves. Especially when we're talking about apartment complexes. You might see apartment complexes that currently rent out apartments by themselves start renting out by the room, in order to control how many people are on their property at any one time, because you are going to get people who get booted out of their home with nowhere else to go, and their friends who still have a place and a roof will, I've done this, I've offered couches to people to stay on for as long as they needed to in order to find their own place. It takes a long time, especially if you're not of means. Just say rich.
Yeah.
Just say rich. Just don't do this snippy elitist walk around when you want to rent the house out to rich people or people who you think whose 401ks are of an appropriate size because they managed to get through some of the most expensive schooling in the country with their parents' money or something. I don't.
Oh yeah,
like
and,
not to rant against rich people too hard, but it's one of those things where if we don't recognize that we need to do something about housing and something about affordable housing, crime in Kalamazoo is only going to go up as the majority of the population gets pushed further and further out into the outskirts, and people pile up and pile up and pile up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
Like it really baffles me to a point where people stop thinking about the logical conclusion, the logical steps, and the sequence of events that happens that we have record of when things like this happen. When we just start ignoring history and we ignore the patterns of history, that when you see this type of stuff happen, you form a second-class citizenry crust around the moneyed center of the city.
Yeah.
That rich people will then do literally whatever they can do to keep the unsightlies away. Keep out the homeless, keep out the poor people, keep out the people who don't look like they belong. It happens every single time. And that's not an equal society. It's not. Like, sure, you can argue that we live in a meritocracy, but I'm sorry, Jeff Bezos, he what merit does he have where he makes the absolutely obscene amount of money? What merit does he have?
Well, he knows how to exploit those workers.
Yeah, he sure does.
Boy, he does.
Like his merit comes in at being in the right place, being in the right technological place in the right time, and exploiting the market and
having rich parents. Don't forget that.
And his ability to exploit a market that could not adapt to the changing technology fast enough in order for him to monopolize online shopping. Like, there are a bunch of American companies. I've gone completely off topic.
All right, I think like we started with,
it's that whole it's
crime in Kalamazoo,
gentrification, and pushing people out into the outskirts is not how you build a healthy city. It's not how you build a healthy community. It's not how you maintain a thriving community by essentially pandering to people who are just trying to make money.
You know, I think what it is, it's a really big difference of perspective. And, you know, just taking these folks at face value, not assigning, you know, some sort of like corruption or malfeasance on anybody's part in the city government, but just looking at like how they frame these issues. And you have like, you know, there's people like, you know, Mayor Hopewell, people like Commissioner Jack Urban, who, Jack, he actually came on the show and said, like, you know, one of the reasons we should have a low tax base is to, like, incentivize big companies like Costco to come in and, like, set up shop here. And, like, the other side of that argument, which is very common sense to me, is, okay, if we're going to have this investment in the city, use it to build up communities, use it to make sure that those people can start their own businesses, that you get like employee-oriented co-ops there, and you know,
bottom-up capital. Yeah. Invest it in bottom-up capitalism, not top-down capitalism.
Yeah.
Bottom-up capitalism is what generated is like it goes to that whole argument that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party love to make. Small businesses are the backbone of the American economy. Because it's true. Yeah. Because these people got the ability to establish themselves and establish their own businesses within healthy, thriving communities.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I'd also tell you, like, look at who's buying up these properties now. It's the Brownfield Development Authority, who they are the ones currently buying up these lots downtown. And if you dig into them, they have some affiliations with our dear county treasurer Ray Balkema and her businesses, and you know, the Kalamazoo County Land Bank, which has historically shown guilt or malfeasance in cases of housing discrimination. You know, there's that famous case a couple years ago, Mary Balkema and her people basically kicked this black blind man out of his house. So we come to the table time and time again asking for more affordable housing, more accessible housing downtown, and it's like they only hear half of it. Or
you want housing?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give you housing.
Or
it's going to cost you $1,200 a month to live in it. What? I make $10 an hour. How?
And I noticed like there's an article that came about this, and the mayor is using a lot of like kind of deflective language, talking about how like, well, you know, it's like they're coming in to buy it, and you know, we can put pressure on them to you know, make some affordable units, and he talks about it how it's priority, but like you got to put your money where your mouth is. If the city is going to let these corporations buy up the city property, or at least, you know, property that we have the ability to lease, it's not enough to just say, okay, you're going to use this land. You've got to ask them, what are you going to use this land for? Who is this land going to be for? To just wash your hands and say like, well, I can't do anything about it. The free market stepped in. Well, the free market ain't free, as we all know.
Nothing is free. Guys, the free market isn't free because nothing is free.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, like, again, it's gonna... Things will just get worse, and I think you'll see an uptick in crime in poor neighborhoods that again are once again getting the short end of the stick in exchange for a very robust, very attractive looking downtown area.
It's not really worth it. Oh, did you, Lawrence, already talk about the Supreme Court decision?
No.
That was the one that let's just kind of struck me, because I've been saying, like, Andy, you've known me for a long time. Say about, you know, when I was 16. You know that I've always I've been a large proponent of unions and unionization and worker collectivism in order to establish a good work environment for employees under their employer. I've been saying Americans need to get back to unionizing for about at least the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
At least the last 10 years. I've been saying it a long time. It's sort of like... I haven't heard any good arguments against unionization, especially when you take a look at countries that have strong labor laws and have strong unions, and exactly how much better their working and middle class are.
Can we backtrack just a little bit, just to give people context? Is this the Supreme Court decision, Yanis versus whatever it was? But I believe, so the ramifications of this, it's going to make it more difficult for people to unionize.
It's not going to make it more difficult for people to unionize. The recent Supreme Court decision that came down is a decision that will keep non-union employees from forming class action lawsuits against their employers.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got it confused with another union
different one.
This is also important.
But it goes into, it's like, man, maybe people will actually start unionizing now, and maybe we'll actually have a decent organized workforce, because in order for you to actually find good redresses with your employers, you're going to need to have a union, because you're going to need to have that collective bargaining. Which you could do before this decision, you could do with just class action lawsuits. But now with this, now you're forced into arbitration. You're forced into single arbitration with your company, where they have all of the bargaining power and you have none. So essentially, you're going to get take what they give you, and if you complain about it, well, they'll just fire you. It's especially concerning when we take a look at the fact that multiple companies and corporations lately have been taken to court under class action lawsuits for stolen wages and manipulated hours. I used to work at Insomnia Cookies. I actually got a letter from a law office stating that Insomnia Cookie, back when I worked for them, stating that they had underpaid me. They had taken some of my wages that I was due, and that I was eligible to be a part of a class action lawsuit against them in order to redress that. And I had no freaking clue. And that's the power of collective action against a company. But in order to now effectively do that, only unions get to do that now. If you're not a part of a union, screw you. Go to arbitration. You're gonna get whatever piddlance they want to give you, which is definitely not going to be even equivalent to the thing that they took from you. The article that was posted within our group for us to kind of read and discuss, going over it, it mentions that the legal cost of taking an employer to court in order to obtain what the employer took from the employee.
It would be a level of cost and bureaucracy that would basically be insane to just do on your own.
It's absolutely insane. It's something like $200,000 to get back $1,900 in stolen wages, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's something that you cannot, as a working class person, it's something a working class person cannot do. It's just not feasible. You need to have that power of collective action. But this just goes to show that as we've moved further and further and further right with the implementation of right-to-work laws, which are actually right-to-work for less laws, because it forces unions to pay for the things that non-union workers do without ever without ever receiving compensation for that, which drains unions financially and destroys them from within. On top of right-to-work laws, now we have this Supreme Court decision that really says your employer can screw you over and there's nothing you can do about it unless you're a part of a union. So America, or, Kalamazoo, consider joining a union today.
Please. I've actually been thinking about looking into the IWW, the Wobblies. Check them out. It's very interesting historically, and they've really been on the upswing in the last couple of years. People have really kind of starting to really get back into the connection between organized labor and radical politics.
It's weird because actually my current employer, I would be eligible for, I think, the Auto Workers Union.
Oh, hey. Yeah, no. Yep. All right. Well, you know what? It's about 1:45. I don't know if was there anything else you really wanted to touch on, Luke? Maybe we could wrap up a little early today. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Everything else is horse race politics, general idiocy from the right with no self-awareness of what they sound, general idiocy from the Democrats being Democrats. Nothing's changed.
Kind of like those 6 Democrats that voted to
establish Gina Haspel.
Bloody Gina as the CIA director.
Bipartisanship isn't good, guys.
No, Gina Haspel should be like a character in an Eli Roth film, but
Gina Haspel, somebody who should probably be in jail.
Well, yeah, for all those war crimes,
Yeah,
it's like all the torture and stuff.
But she was part of the CIA, so it was okay,
Remember, kids, if you expose torture in the United States, you go to jail. If you torture a whole bunch of people, you get a huge promotion.
If you expose the fact that the government is spying on you, you get excommunicated from the country.
I mean, you do get an Oliver Stone movie, so
trade-off. Give and take.
All right. Well, I think with that, let's go ahead and close her out. This has been the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.